His fiancée fired the housekeeper over one coffee. The Mafia Boss took one sip and stopped dinner. Act 1, The Blue Cup. You are dismissed, Bianca March said, and the dining room went so quiet that Sofia Lane heard the coffee tremble inside the cup. The cup was cobalt blue, small enough to hide in one steady hand, with a pale chip on the rim where Carlo Voss used to tap his signet ring when he was thinking. Sofia held it on a saucer beside the silver dessert forks, not in front of the fiancé, not in front of the guests, but beside the empty place at the head of the table. Adrian Voss had not sat there yet. He stood by the long windows in a black suit and black overcoat, with two silent guards behind him and the dark shape of an SUV visible through the rain-streaked glass. He had been speaking to the older men who wanted his name on their investments, their charities, and their family alliances. He looked like a man who could stop a room by breathing differently. Bianca had stopped it first. I said you are dismissed, she repeated, her diamond bracelet flashing under the warm chandelier light. This dinner is not a kitchen memorial. Sofia did not lower the cup. She was 37 years old, tired in the feet, straight in the spine, and still wearing the soft gray apron that had survived 6 years in the Voss house. She had polished crystal before sunrise, argued with butchers before breakfast, and once talked Carlo Voss into eating soup when every expensive guest at the table had pretended not to notice his hands shaking. She knew when a room wanted her to shrink. She also knew when a dead man's place had been erased too neatly. Mr. Carlo asked for this after dinner when the house was full, Sofia said. Bianca laughed once, sharp and polished. Carlo Voss hated that coffee at the end. Everyone here knows it. No one answered. The guests looked at their napkins. The staff looked at the floor. Adrian did not move, but Sofia saw his left hand close around the back of a chair. Bianca smiled at him as if she owned the silence. Adrian, forgive this. I tried to keep the old staff for your sake, but some people mistake habit for loyalty. Sofia walked to Adrian's place and set the chipped cobalt espresso cup on the white linen. Not pushed. Not slammed. Set down. He asked for it this way every morning, she said. Half bitter. One brown sugar cube after the first sip. Never before. Adrian's eyes moved from Sofia's face to the cup. One of his guards shifted. Bianca lifted a hand, as if the whole matter could be brushed away with a diamond. Remove her, Bianca said. Nobody moved. Adrian crossed the room. The guests parted without being told, because men like Adrian Voss did not need to raise their voices when a path already belonged to him. He stopped at the table, looked once at Sofia, and then picked up the blue cup. Adrian, Bianca said, suddenly soft. Do not indulge this. He drank. For 1 second nothing happened. Rain ticked against the glass. The chandelier hummed. Somewhere in the kitchen, a tray settled in a rack with a tiny metal complaint. Then Adrian set the cup down with such care that everyone understood he was not calm. Dinner is paused, he said. Bianca's smile held for half a breath too long. Paused, she asked. Adrian kept his eyes on the cup. Everyone stays seated. His voice did not rise, but two guards at the door straightened as if the floor had changed underneath them. The older men stopped pretending to admire the flowers. Bianca's fingers tightened around the back of her chair. Sofia took one step back. She had not meant to start a war at an engagement dinner. She had meant to put one cup where it belonged before she left a house that had forgotten the man who built it. Adrian looked at her. Your name, he said. Sofia Lane. You worked for my father. I served his breakfast. For how long? 6 years. Bianca cut in. She cleaned rooms and carried trays. She did not serve him in any meaningful sense. Sofia kept her hands folded at her waist, though heat moved under her skin. Meaningful is a large word for people who were not there at 6 in the morning. A few guests looked up. Adrian did not smile. He did not defend her either. He only watched her with a focus that made Sofia more careful with every breath. Who taught you this coffee? He asked. Your father did. My father stopped drinking coffee before he died. No, Sofia said. Bianca's face hardened. Sofia heard the danger in the room then. Not the obvious kind. Not shouting. Not thrown plates. This was the quieter danger of powerful people discovering that a small worker had carried a truth through their polished house without permission. She should have stepped back. She should have taken the dismissal and the last envelope of pay that would probably never come. She should have said nothing more until she was safely outside the iron gate. Instead she looked at Adrian Voss and said, he stopped drinking it only after they took the blue cup away. The room changed. Adrian touched the chipped rim with his thumb. Who took it? Bianca's laugh came too fast. Adrian, this is absurd. Your father was ill, emotional, and surrounded by staff who liked to dramatize ordinary service. Who took it? Adrian asked again. No one answered. Sofia did. Mrs. March asked me to box it 3 weeks before he died. Bianca's eyes flashed. Because it was chipped. Because he kept asking for you to send his son to breakfast, Sofia said. Adrian's head lifted. Bianca went still. The guards did not move, yet the room seemed smaller with them in it. Say that again, Adrian said. Sofia swallowed. The cup sat between them, small and blue and bright against the white linen. Your father asked for you every morning. He wanted breakfast at the east window. He wanted this coffee. He wanted the other chair left empty until 7:15. I was told you refused to come. Adrian's face did not change, which frightened Sofia more than anger would have. Bianca turned toward him, eyes shining with perfect wounded grace. I was trying to protect you. Carlo was confused. Some days he thought you were still a boy. Some days he asked for people who had been gone 20 years. Did he ask for me? Adrian said. Of course he did. He was your father. Did you tell me? Bianca breathed in. The hesitation lasted only a second, but in a room trained to watch power, a second could become evidence. Sofia looked down at the chipped cobalt espresso cup and remembered Carlo Voss sitting in his robe, one hand on the saucer, one hand folded over the empty chair beside him. Tell him I will not ask about the business. That was what Carlo had said. Tell him I want coffee before I go. Sofia had not been allowed past the foyer with that message. Adrian turned to his fiancée. Answer me. Bianca's voice softened again. I told you what mattered. Adrian looked at the blue cup. Then he turned toward the staff line by the kitchen door. Bring me every person who served breakfast in this house during my father's last month. The head butler, Glenn, paled. Sir, at once. No, Sofia said. I came back to her. It was not intelligent, interrupting a mafia boss in his own dining room. Sofia knew that. Her mother had not raised reckless daughters, she had raised practical ones who paid bills, counted leftovers, and knew when a rich family drama could swallow a working woman whole. But Carlo Voss had also told her once that practical did not mean cowardly. Adrian faced her slowly. No? Not like that, Sofia said. If you call them in front of this table, they will tell you what they think keeps them employed. One of the guests made a small sound. Bianca looked relieved, as if Sofia had finally stepped into arrogance. Adrian did not. Then how? He asked. Sofia looked toward the service hall. One at a time. In the breakfast room. Without Mrs. March present. Without the guests. And without anyone standing over them like their rent depends on your mood. The room waited for him to punish her. Adrian's mouth tightened, but not in anger. In recognition, maybe. Or pain. You think my mood owns their rent? In this house? Sofia asked. Yes. A servant near the kitchen door sucked in a breath. Adrian looked from Sofia to the staff line, then to Bianca, then back to the chipped cobalt espresso cup. Clear the dining room, he said. Bianca rose. Adrian, no. You cannot humiliate our guests because a housekeeper has become sentimental over a cup. Our guests can wait with dessert in the west parlor. This dinner was arranged for our future. Then it can survive 20 minutes of truth. Bianca's beauty sharpened as she leaned closer. Do not let staff turn grief into theater. Adrian's eyes moved to Sofia. She expected him to reconsider. Men like him did not like being challenged in public, especially by women in aprons who had already been fired. Instead he asked, Did my father call you Sofia? Yes. What did you call him? Mr. Carlo, when others were nearby. And when they were not? Sofia looked at the cup. Still Mr. Carlo. For the first time, something almost like humor touched Adrian's face. He must have hated that. Every morning. The corner of Adrian's mouth moved, then disappeared. He picked up the blue cup and handed it back to her, not as a master returning property, but as a man placing fragile evidence into the hands that understood it. Breakfast room, he said. You lead. Act 2, the room at 7:15. The breakfast room was smaller than the dining room, which made it harder to lie inside. That was what Carlo Voss used to say. It faced east, where the garden rose in damp terraces toward a line of cypress trees. In the mornings, before the house filled with voices, the light came flat and gold across the old table. Carlo had preferred that light because it showed dust, chipped porcelain, watered coffee, false smiles, and the trembling of his own hands. Sofia walked in first with the chipped cobalt espresso cup on its saucer. Adrian followed without his overcoat. He had left it in the dining room, but nothing about him looked less dangerous. The black suit fit him like discipline, and the heavy ring on his right hand caught the pale light each time his fingers moved. Bianca followed too. Adrian stopped at the threshold. No. Her eyebrows lifted. Excuse me? You wait in the parlor. I am your fiancé. Tonight you are one of the subjects of this question. The words were quiet. They landed with weight. Bianca stared at him. Sofia saw anger first, then calculation. It moved behind the woman's eyes like a curtain being drawn over a window. You would exclude me because a servant resents correction? Sofia answered before Adrian could. I resent lies more than correction. Bianca turned on her. You have been dismissed. Then I have nothing to protect except the truth. Adrian's gaze cut to Sofia, and she felt the force of it in her ribs. Not disapproval. Attention. It would have been easier if he had shouted. Easier if he had become the cruel man whispered about in staff kitchens and parking lots, the one whose name made delivery drivers lower their voices. Instead he stood there listening, which made every word Sofia spoke feel more consequential. Parlor, Adrian said to Bianca. Bianca smiled with her mouth only. You will regret letting nostalgia sit at your table. I regret many things, Adrian said. This one can wait. She left. The guard at the corridor door closed it behind her. Sofia exhaled without meaning to. Adrian heard it. You are afraid. I am employed in your house. Not anymore, according to my fiancé. That does not make me safer. He accepted that without offense, which surprised her. No. It does not. Glenn, the head butler, arrived first, carrying his dignity like a tray he could not afford to drop. He was 62, careful, and so polished that most people forgot he had a wife with weak knees and a mortgage on a narrow brick house 2 towns over. He looked at Adrian. Then he looked at Sofia. Then he looked at the blue cup. His face changed. Adrian noticed. Tell me what you see, Adrian said. Glenn clasped his hands. Your father's cup, sir. Did he use it? Yes, sir. Until when? Glenn swallowed. Sofia spoke gently. Say the date you remember, Glenn. Glenn looked at her as though she had given him permission to breathe. Until May 12th, he said. Breakfast service. 7:15. He asked for you, sir. Adrian's hand tightened on the back of the chair. Was I told? Glenn's eyes went to the closed door. Adrian's voice lowered. Not toward the door. Toward me. The old butler straightened by one careful inch. I wrote it in the morning sheet. Mrs. March collected the sheets that week. Sofia set the cup on the table. Not because it proved everything. It did not. A cup could carry memory, but memory was not enough when powerful people had learned to dismiss it as sentiment. Still, the cup made Glenn brave. He said, Glenn continued, that if you came, we were to serve the coffee before either of you spoke. He said talking first would ruin it. Adrian closed his eyes for a moment. Sofia looked away. Grief was not a performance when it arrived in a man's throat before he could stop it. The next staff member was Mrs. Alvarez, who had washed linen for the Voss house long before Sofia came. She did not sit until Sofia pulled out a chair and said, Your knee, please. Mrs. Alvarez sat with gratitude she tried to hide. Adrian watched Sofia do it. Again that attention. Again that sense that he was measuring not her beauty, not her nerve, but the 1,000 little choices that made service either submission or care. The cup was boxed, Mrs. Alvarez said when asked. The blue one. Mrs. March said chip things embarrassed the house. Did my father object? He was angry for 2 days, she said. Then quiet. Quiet how? Mrs. Alvarez rubbed one thumb over the other. Like someone who had learned that asking only made people tired. The words struck Adrian harder than a raised voice. Sofia saw it. His face remained controlled, but his shoulders went still in a different way, as though an old door had opened behind him and cold air had entered. The third person was Tom Harrow, the young pantry assistant who had been 19 then and was 21 now. He looked terrified until Sofia poured him water and pushed it across the table. No one is asking you to choose sides, she said. Just tell the room what you carried. Tom stared at Adrian. Adrian understood. He stepped back from the table, turned one of the chairs around, and sat away from the door. Not relaxed. Not soft. But no longer looming. Tell the room, Adrian said. Not me. Tom breathed. I carried the tray twice, sir. Mr. Carlo always wanted the sugar cube on the saucer, never in the cup. Sofia said he wanted to decide after the first sip. Adrian looked at Sofia. She tried not to feel that look as anything but practical. It was impossible. Why? Adrian asked. He said the first sip told him whether the day deserved sweetness, Sofia said. Glenn made a rough sound that might have been a laugh if the room had allowed it. Adrian looked down at the chipped cobalt espresso cup. That sounds like him. It was him, Sofia said. The words came out stronger than she intended. She was tired of rich people making the dead convenient. Tired of polished grief that erased the woman who had changed bed linens after night sweats and warmed soup 3 times because pride had gone cold before hunger did. Adrian looked up. Say it, he said. Sofia's chin lifted. Your father did not stop wanting you. Other people got tired of hearing him ask. No one breathed. The sentence sat between them like the blue cup, small and impossible to ignore. Adrian looked at her for so long that Sofia wondered whether she had finally gone too far. Then he said, "Thank you." It was not loud. It was not dramatic. That made it worse. Because Sofia felt the words in a place she had spent years teaching not to expect gratitude from powerful men. The breakfast room door opened before she could answer. Bianca walked in with a white folder in her hand, followed by an older woman Sofia recognized as Bianca's aunt, Mrs. Calvetti, whose charities often needed Adrian's name more than his presence. Enough, Bianca said. Since staff memories have become tonight's entertainment, perhaps you should see the actual household notes. Sofia's stomach tightened. There it was. Paper. Official-looking, cream-colored, and probably selected in advance by someone who had expected grief to become inconvenient. Bianca placed the folder on the table, not near Sofia, but near Adrian. Your father's last month was difficult, Bianca said. He refused food. He refused visitors. He accused people of things that never happened. I shielded you from that because you were holding the family together. Adrian did not touch the folder. Who wrote those notes? He asked. The nurse. Which nurse? Bianca's composure flickered. Sofia saw it. So did Glenn. The private nurse, Bianca said. My father had 3. This is beneath us, Mrs. Calvetti said. A chipped cup and kitchen gossip should not interrupt an engagement dinner. Adrian's gaze moved to her. My father interrupted many dinners for less. Mrs. Calvetti closed her mouth. Sofia felt something dangerous and warm move through her chest. Not because Adrian had defended her, exactly, but because he had defended the importance of the small thing. The chipped thing. The thing everyone else wanted to call embarrassing. Adrian finally opened the folder. Sofia watched his face as he read. It gave nothing away. He turned one page, then another. Bianca stood beside him with her chin lifted. Mrs. Calvetti breathed through her nose in a way that made disdain feel expensive. Then Adrian stopped at one page. He refused coffee on May 8th, he read. Bianca's shoulders eased. Yes. Adrian kept reading. He became agitated when staff offered a damaged blue cup. Exactly, Bianca said. Sofia stepped closer before caution could catch her. That page is wrong. Mrs. Calvetti made a sound of disgust. Of course it is, because it does not serve you. Sofia ignored her. May 8th was a Thursday, she said. Mr. Carlo did not take breakfast in this room on Thursdays after his fall. He took it in the small sunroom because the east light hurt his eyes after the new drops made it too sharp. Bianca's face cooled. You expect him to believe you remember one breakfast date? No, Sofia said. I expect him to remember the orchid. Adrian looked up. Sofia pointed through the open side door toward the sunroom. The white orchid by the window was blooming. Your father hated it because he said it looked smug. He asked Tom to turn it around so the flower would face the wall. That was May 8th, after the eye drops had made the east light too sharp. Tom nodded before fear could stop him. Yes. He said it was showing off. Glenn's mouth twitched. Adrian looked toward the sunroom, and the first true crack appeared in his control. He said that about my mother's orchids, he said. Every Thursday, Sofia answered. Bianca shut the folder. This is manipulation, she said. They are building a little play out of old domestic details. Domestic details are how sick men live, Sofia said. The room went hard around her. Bianca turned slowly. Sofia had been careful until then, but the sentence had come from somewhere deeper than employment. She had cared for her own mother through 2 winters of failing health in a rented apartment above a bakery, where nobody important had come to see whether the soup had been salted correctly. Domestic details were not little to people whose lives had become rooms, chairs, cups, and the hour someone remembered to open a curtain. Adrian stood. Everyone out except Sofia, he said. Bianca stared. No. Out. You cannot be alone with her. Sofia almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because Bianca still thought the danger in the room was scandal, not truth. Adrian's voice dropped. Do not make me say it again in front of staff. Bianca's eyes shone, but the shine was anger dressed for a party. Fine, she said. Ask your housekeeper how to grieve. See what it costs you. She left with Mrs. Calvetti. Glenn, Mrs. Alvarez, and Tom followed after Sofia nodded that it was all right. It was not her house. She had no authority. Yet they looked to her because she had become, for one strange night, the person who made truth less dangerous. When the door closed, the breakfast room seemed to exhale. Adrian remained standing. Sofia remained beside the table. Between them sat the chipped cobalt espresso cup. Did he ask for me every morning? Adrian asked. She could have softened it. She did not. For 22 mornings. Adrian looked away. Rain moved over the windows in silver lines. And you tried to tell me? 3 times. Who stopped you? The first time, Mrs. March said you were unavailable. The second time, Glenn was told all personal messages had to go through her. The third time, your father wrote a note. I put it under the saucer. Adrian's head turned back. What note? Sofia's throat tightened. I do not know what happened to it. What did it say? He would not let me read it. But, she touched the edge of the saucer. But he practiced the first line out loud. Adrian waited. Sofia hated the tenderness of what she had to say. It felt private, and yet he had a right to it. He said, tell my son I am not asking him to forgive me before breakfast. Adrian's face changed completely. Not loudly. Not in a way the dining room guests would have understood. But Sofia saw the boy under the boss for one brief, unbearable second. A boy who had been called too late and not at all. A son who had accepted a story because accepting it hurt less than knocking on a door and finding out he had been refused. Then Adrian Voss placed both hands on the back of the chair and lowered his head. Sofia stood very still. She wanted to reach for him. She did not. Care was not ownership. Comfort was not permission. She had spent too many years watching powerful families take service as if it were love they had purchased by the hour. So she waited. When Adrian lifted his head, his eyes were dry. Make it again, he said. The old version of Sofia, the employee version, almost moved at once. The woman who had just been fired did not. No. He looked at her. No, he asked, and this time there was something close to surprise in his voice. I will show you how. The quiet deepened. You want me to make my father's coffee? If you want to know what he waited for, yes. Adrian looked at the espresso pot on the sideboard as if it had become a test more dangerous than any room full of rivals. I have not used that pot. I know. My father used to say I burned water. He told me. For the first time, Adrian almost smiled. Of course he did. Sofia went to the sideboard and lifted the old copper pot, then set out the grounds, the tiny spoon, and 1 brown sugar cube. She did not move quickly. If he was going to do this, he needed to feel each step, not watch her perform it. He measured by smell first, she said. Not by spoon. Adrian came closer. The room seemed to shrink again, but differently now. Not with threat. With attention. He stood beside her, close enough that she caught the faint scent of rain in his coat and the darker scent of expensive soap. His hands were steady, but Sofia noticed the tiny hesitation before he touched the copper pot. Like this, he asked. Too much. He stopped immediately. She took the spoon from his fingers, removed a small amount, then gave it back. He liked bitter coffee, Adrian said. He liked deciding whether it stayed bitter. Adrian absorbed that. It was a small sentence. It carried an entire marriage, an entire fatherhood, an entire life of men making hard things because they did not trust sweetness unless it came after endurance. Sofia wechtimpour. He did it badly the first time. The stream broke. Coffee splashed onto the saucer. Again, she said. He looked at her. Most people in the Voss house corrected Adrian Voss by swallowing the correction before it existed. Sofia did not. Wipe it, she said, handing him a cloth. Then again. He wiped the saucer. Then he poured again. This time the coffee settled dark and smooth inside the chipped cobalt cup. Sofia pushed the brown sugar cube beside it. Not in, he asked. Not yet. Adrian picked up the cup. He drank 1 small sip, and Sofia saw the memory strike before he could hide it. His father's coffee had been terrible. Too dark. Too stubborn. Perfectly itself. Adrian set the cup down and looked at the sugar cube. He waited. Every morning. For me. Yes. The word entered the room gently. Adrian reached for the sugar cube, then stopped. What did he do after the first sip? Sofia folded her arms. Usually complained. That time, Adrian did smile. It was brief, and it changed his face in a way Sofia did not want to notice as much as she did. About what? The coffee. The weather. Your handwriting. The fact that you never learned to sit still. The fact that he missed you. Adrian's smile faded at the last sentence, but it did not disappear entirely. It became something older. I thought he did not want me there. He thought you did not want to come. Bianca told me he asked for quiet. He did, Sofia said. After 22 mornings. Adrian closed his eyes again, and this time Sofia looked at him because he was not performing strength. He was enduring it. After a long moment, he opened his eyes and looked at her. Not as my housekeeper, Adrian said. Will you sit down as the woman who remembers what I forgot? Sofia did not move. This was the turn. She felt it even before she understood it. The room that had held orders, wages, schedules, and quiet dismissal was being remade around a question. Not a command. Not a gift. Not a wealthy man's dramatic apology while servants applauded from the walls. A question. She could say no. Adrian had given her that, whether he knew how rare it was. If I sit, she said, you do not ask me to save you from every memory you avoided. Fair. You do not use me to punish her. Bianca? Anyone. He nodded once. Fair. And you do not call me loyal because I remembered what your family paid me to notice. That one landed. He studied her for a long second. What do I call you? Sofia pulled out the chair across from him. Sofia. He looked at the chair, then at her, and something in his expression made the air feel warmer than the coffee. Sofia, he said. She sat. Act 3, What the Cup Remembered. The dining room guests waited 37 minutes before Adrian returned. Sofia knew because she checked the clock twice, not because she wanted the dinner to continue, but because a room full of insulted investors and offended relatives could become its own kind of storm. Powerful people rarely minded being delayed by death, money, or ambition. They hated being delayed by staff. Adrian did not rush. He finished the second coffee he had made himself, badly but honestly. He asked 3 more questions about his father's mornings, and none of them were the ones Sofia expected. Not who lied. Not who hid what. Not what could be proven. He asked where Carlo sat when it rained. He asked whether his father still wore the old red robe with the worn elbow. He asked whether Carlo had eaten the pear jam Sofia made when store jars became too sweet for him. These questions cut more deeply than accusations. Because they made the lost time visible. When Adrian finally stood, he took the chipped cobalt espresso cup with him. Sofia stood too. You do not have to bring me back in there, she said. I know. If you do, she will make me the scandal. She already tried. She will do it better next time. Adrian looked at her with that unnerving stillness. You think I do not understand polished cruelty. I think you understand it when it comes from men in dark suits. His mouth tightened. And when it comes from women in diamonds? You invited one to plan your future. For a heartbeat, Sofia was certain she had ruined whatever strange respect had grown between them. Then Adrian gave a low, humorless laugh. You do not step around broken glass, do you? Only when I am barefoot. He looked down at her shoes, plain black kitchen shoes with one scuffed toe. Are you? Not tonight. There it was again. Almost a smile. Adrian opened the breakfast room door. Come with me, Sofia. He did not touch her back. He did not take her wrist. He did not perform possession in a hallway where any guard could watch and misunderstand. He simply waited until she chose to walk beside him. That choice changed everything. In the west parlor, Bianca stood near the fireplace with a glass of white wine she had not drunk. The guests gathered in shining clusters. Mrs. Calvetti spoke in a low voice to 2 men whose wives watched Sofia enter as if she had walked in carrying dirt on a silver tray. Adrian placed the chipped cobalt espresso cup on the small marble table at the center of the room. The blue looked almost shocking there. Everything else was cream, gold, silver, and money. The cup was old, imperfect, and stubbornly alive. Bianca saw it and went pale with fury. Adrian, she said, this has gone far enough. It has not gone nearly far enough. The guests quieted. Sofia stood 2 steps behind him, which felt safe and wrong at once. Adrian turned his head slightly. Beside me. Sofia did not move. Bianca's lips parted. Adrian did not look away from Sofia. Only if you choose. That last sentence mattered. It mattered so much that Sofia hated how her throat tightened. She stepped beside him. Not close enough to be claimed. Close enough to be heard. Adrian faced the room. Tonight was arranged as an engagement dinner, he said. It was also arranged around a lie. A murmur rose and died. Bianca set down her glass. Do not do this publicly. You made it public when you fired her in front of my table. She served you a prop. Adrian looked at the blue cup. No. She served me a memory with a chip in it. The line should have sounded sentimental. From him, it sounded like a verdict. Mrs. Calvetti stepped forward. Adrian, grief can make servants bold. You are in pain, and pain is not the same as proof. Agreed. The aunt blinked, surprised by the concession. Adrian continued, so we will not pretend the cup proves everything. Sofia felt relief move through her. He had listened. The cup proves only this, Adrian said. My father drank coffee later than I was told. My father asked for me later than I was told. Several members of staff remember details that contradict the version I accepted. Bianca's voice sharpened. Staff can be coached. Then you should not have fired the woman who remembered what you wanted forgotten. A guest near the bookshelves whispered something that died under Adrian's glance. Bianca lifted her chin. I protected you from a sick man's confusion. Sofia saw the trap in that sentence. If Adrian fought over whether Carlo had been confused, Bianca could drown the room in grief, illness, and noble intention. Sofia stepped forward. May I ask one question? Every face turned. Adrian looked at her. Yes. Bianca gave a brittle laugh. Of course. Let the housekeeper cross-examine me now. No, Sofia said. One question. About coffee. Bianca folded her arms. Sofia walked to the marble table and touched the saucer, not the cup. If Mr. Carlo hated this coffee at the end, why did you ask me to make it on May 10th? Bianca blinked. It was small. It was enough. Adrian noticed. You asked her? I do not remember every household instruction, Bianca said. I do, Sofia replied. Mrs. Calvetti scoffed. How convenient. Sofia looked at her calmly. It was the morning you came to discuss the engagement papers. Mrs. March asked me to make 2 cups of Mr. Carlo's coffee. She said she needed the room to smell normal before Mr. Voss arrived, because he might become difficult if the house felt changed. Bianca's color rose. Adrian's eyes were on his fiancée now. You made my father's coffee to manage him, he said. I used familiar things to soothe him. But you told me he hated it. Because he did, later. Later than May 10th? Yes. Then why does the note say he refused it on May 8th? Silence. Sofia heard the rain again. Heard the fire settle. Heard someone in the parlor swallow. Bianca had been careful with big lies. She had not respected small facts enough. That was often where truth entered a room. Through the servant's calendar. Through the chipped cup. Through the smell of coffee made by hands nobody thought important. Adrian picked up the cup. This dinner is over, he said. Bianca's eyes widened. Adrian. The engagement is not ended in this room, he said, and Sofia respected him more for that restraint than she would have for a dramatic instant declaration. It will be reviewed tomorrow, privately, with every party sober and every story placed in order. Mrs. Calvetti looked relieved, until Adrian continued. But tonight, I will not announce a future with a woman who cannot answer one question about my father's last breakfast. Bianca stared at him as if he had struck the chandelier from the ceiling. The room erupted into whispers. Adrian turned to his guards. Escort our guests to their cars. With courtesy. Then, after a pause that made the instruction impossible to mistake, he added, Mrs. March leaves with her aunt. Bianca came toward him. You are choosing staff over me? Sofia felt the room pull at the word staff. Adrian did too. He stepped between Bianca and Sofia without touching either woman. No, he said. I am choosing not to marry a lie before I understand it. Bianca's face trembled with rage. And her? For the first time, Adrian looked uncertain. Not weak. Careful. He turned to Sofia as if the answer belonged to her. Sofia's heart struck once, hard. She knew what a foolish story would do now. It would have him declare love in front of the woman he had almost married, wrap Sofia in public triumph, and let the room cheer because a housekeeper had been promoted to a fantasy. Sofia did not want a fantasy built from another woman's humiliation. She wanted truth. She wanted clean floors, honest kitchens, workers who were not fired for remembering, and perhaps, though she was not ready to name it, a man powerful enough to ask rather than take. I am going home, Sofia said. Adrian accepted it instantly. Bianca laughed. There. Your witness runs. Sofia faced her. No, she said. Your witness has been on her feet since 5 this morning. Tom, near the doorway, made a startled sound that might have become laughter if Glenn had not glared at him. Adrian's mouth moved. The room was too tense for humor, but it found him anyway. Sofia picked up the saucer. Adrian's hand closed lightly around the cup before she could lift it. She looked at him. "May I keep it tonight?" he asked. Not command. Question. That changed the weight of it. "If you wash it by hand," she said. He nodded solemnly. "I can be taught." "That remains to be seen." This time, several staff members did smile. Bianca looked as if Sofia had committed an offense worse than any accusation. She had made the mafia boss human without making him small. Adrian turned to Glenn. "Ms. Lane leaves through the front entrance. Her final wages, if she still chooses to leave, are doubled for unpaid overtime. No one touches her room or locker." Sofia stiffened. "My wages are not evidence." Adrian looked back at her. "No. They are wages." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "And the doubled part?" "Overdue apology. Pay the others first." Adrian blinked. "What?" "If you are opening payroll sins tonight, start with Mrs. Alvarez. She has covered 2 jobs since April." Mrs. Alvarez made a noise behind her hand. Adrian looked from Sofia to the older woman. Then he looked at Glenn. "Make a list." Sofia pointed at him. "Not a punishment list. A repayment list. With names checked by the staff, not just management." Adrian's eyes warmed in that dangerous quiet way. "You negotiate while fired?" "Best time." Someone actually laughed then. Softly, quickly, but it happened. Adrian held her gaze. "Anything else?" "Yes. Do not call me tomorrow before 9. I sleep on Thursdays when rich people ruin Wednesdays." The guard by the door looked away. Adrian's smile came fully this time. It was not charming in the easy way. It was rarer than that, a crack in a wall that let light through without pretending the wall had never existed. "After 9, he said. Sofia left by the front entrance with her coat over one arm, her feet hurting, and her dignity still in her own hands. Behind her, in the parlor, Adrian Voss stood beside a chipped cobalt espresso cup while the future arranged for him began to come apart. Act 4, After 9. Adrian did not call at 9. He came at 9:12. Sofia was not surprised by the 12 minutes. Men like Adrian Voss often believed lateness was a weather system that happened around them. She was surprised by the fact that he came alone. No guards at her door. No black SUV idling at the curb. No messenger with flowers large enough to embarrass the building. Just Adrian in a dark coat, standing outside the narrow brick row house where Sofia rented the second-floor apartment above a tailor who argued with sports radio every morning. Sofia opened the front door holding a mug of ordinary coffee. Not his father's coffee. Hers. "It is 9:12, she said. He looked at his watch, then back at her. "You told me not before 9. I see power has made you interpretive." "I walked around the block twice." She did not want that to move her. It did anyway. The morning was cold and bright. Delivery trucks coughed at the corner. Somewhere nearby, the tailor shouted at the radio in Italian, then apologized to nobody. Adrian held up a paper bag. "I brought breakfast." "From where?" "A bakery on Fulton." "Did you cut the line?" "No." "Did anyone cut it for you?" A woman in a blue coat offered. "And I went to the back." Sofia sipped her coffee to hide her smile. Progress. He looked pleased in a way he probably would have denied under questioning. "Mais comment?" She looked past him at the street. "Where are your guards?" "Far enough away not to insult you. Close enough that my accountant will not faint." "Your accountant worries about you." "He worries about paperwork." Sofia considered him. This was the part of the story where a less practical woman might invite danger because it wore a good coat and remembered her name. Sofia was practical. She knew that a man like Adrian carried complications in the seams of his clothing, even when he had left the visible ones down the block. But she also saw the paper bag in his hand, and the way he stood one step below her on the stoop instead of above her. 10 minutes, she said. "Thank you." Her apartment was small, warm, and ruthlessly tidy because there was no room for mess to become sentimental. A narrow table stood by the window. 2 mismatched chairs faced each other. A basil plant leaned toward the light with the determination of something that had survived worse apartments. Adrian stepped inside and looked around without judgment. That mattered too. Rich people often thought not judging poverty made them generous, but they forgot to stop being curious. Adrian did not inspect. He simply took off his coat, waited for Sofia to point to a chair, and placed the paper bag on the table. "Before you feed me," Sofia said, "tell me what happened after I left." He sat. Bianca left with her aunt. The engagement dinner ended. At midnight I asked Glenn, Mrs. Alvarez, and Tom whether they wanted to speak further, with Sofia Lane absent so no one could claim you coached them. Good. At 2, I found the note. Sofia stopped with her hand on the paper bag. Adrian reached into his coat and took out a small envelope sealed in old cream paper. It was worn at one corner, as if it had been handled and hidden more than once. Where? Inside the hollow of my father's chest clock. Sofia sat down slowly. He used to hide chocolates there. I know. Adrian's mouth softened. There was one of those too. It had become terrible. She looked at the envelope. Did you read it? Yes. He did not hand it to her, and she respected that. Some words were not hers to hold. Did it say the first line? Adrian looked at the window. Yes. Tell my son I am not asking him to forgive me before breakfast. Sofia did not need him to repeat it. There was more, Adrian said. He said he had made enemies out of habits and called it discipline. He said I learned from him too well. Sofia listened. He asked me to come for coffee, not business. He wrote that if I could not come, someone should at least teach me to make it properly. That hurt her in a strange way, sharp and sweet together. He knew you burned water, she said. Apparently my incompetence comforted him. Parents take what they can get. Adrian looked at her over the table. Do you have family? The question was not casual. From him, questions seemed to arrive only after passing through several locked doors. My mother died 4 years ago, Sofia said. My sister lives in Arizona. We talk when one of us remembers not to be proud. And your father? Gone before memory became useful. I am sorry. Thank you. He did not push. Sofia appreciated that more than she wanted to. She opened the paper bag. Inside were 2 rolls, still warm, and a small cardboard box of pastries. No gold ribbon. No insulting luxury. Just breakfast. You did well, she said. I was supervised by the woman in the blue coat. A terrifying authority. She told me I was holding up the line. I like her. Adrian's eyes warmed again. They ate without ceremony. The first few minutes were almost ordinary, which made them dangerous in a different way. Sofia had known men who performed grand repentance because they wanted forgiveness to arrive on schedule. Adrian did not do that. He buttered a roll badly, accepted correction without drama, and asked whether the basil plant had a name. No, Sofia said. It is a plant. It seems ambitious. It pays rent and leaves. Then it deserves respect. She shook her head, but she was smiling. After breakfast, Adrian placed a folded paper on the table. Sofia leaned back. If that is a job offer, I am going to finish my coffee before refusing it. It is not. Good. It is a list of staff reimbursements Glenn began last night. Mrs. Alvarez first. Sofia picked it up. The list was not perfect, but it was serious. Names. Hours. Owed pay. Notes on medical days covered by other staff. Kitchen assistants moved between houses without overtime. Drivers who had bought their own winter gloves. Sofia read each line slowly, and the longer she read, the more she understood that Adrian had not slept much. This is a start, she said. I need someone to check it. She looked at him over the paper. Careful. I am. If you ask me to come back as staff, the answer is no. I know. If you ask me to become some moral ornament in your house, the answer is also no. I know that too. Do you? He met her eyes. I am trying to. That sentence, more than any confident declaration, made Sofia set the paper down gently. What are you asking? For 3 afternoons of your time, paid at consultant rates you approve, to review what happened in my father's household during his last 2 months. Not for legal punishment. Not for theater. For repair. Repair for whom? The staff first. My father's memory second. My pride last, if there is anything worth repairing there. Sofia studied him. He had learned something from the cup. Not enough. One night did not unmake a lifetime of command. But enough to ask differently. And Bianca? The engagement is ended. Sofia went still. He did not look triumphant. He looked tired. This morning, she asked. At 8:40. Before you came here? Yes. Why? Because the note proved she hid my father's request. Because the staff confirmed she controlled access while telling me he wanted distance. Because she admitted she thought grief made me weak and a marriage alliance would make the house stable. Sofia absorbed that. Did you love her? Adrian looked at the chipped morning light on her table. No. The answer was simple. It still needed dignity. Did she love you? She loved what standing beside me prevented other people from doing to her. Sofia did not mock that. She understood survival too well to enjoy the ugly shapes it could take. That is sad, she said. Adrian looked back at her. You are kinder than she deserves. I am kinder than many people deserve. It saves time. He laughed softly. Then the room quieted. Sofia felt the next question coming and feared it because she wanted it. Adrian did not ask it yet. Instead, he reached into his coat again and took out the chipped cobalt espresso cup. Clean. Hand-washed. Wrapped in a white cloth. He set it on her table. You brought it here? You said I could keep it for the night. I did. The night ended. Sofia looked at the cup, then at him. You could have sent it with a driver. I could have. Why didn't you? Adrian's hands rested on the table, open and still. Because I wanted to ask whether you would teach me to make it again. For your father? For me, he said. And perhaps, if you are willing, with you. There it was. Not a proposal. Not an ownership claim. Not a dramatic rescue. A beginning placed carefully on a kitchen table in a rented apartment, beside a basil plant and a paper bag of rolls. Sofia's pulse moved in her throat. Coffee lessons are expensive, she said. I assumed. I charge extra when students are stubborn. Then I may need a payment plan. The absurdity of that, from a man who could likely buy the block, made her laugh before she could stop herself. Adrian watched the laughter as if it was something he had no right to touch. That restraint decided her. One lesson, Sofia said. When? Sunday morning. 7:15. His expression changed. That was his time. I know. Are you sure? No, she said. But I am willing. Adrian nodded, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Outside, the tailor began shouting at the radio again. Sofia stood to refill her mug, needing movement before the room became too intimate to breathe inside. Adrian rose at once, not because he was leaving, but because she had stood. Old manners, or new attention. She did not know yet. Sit, she said. He sat. You are teachable after all. Do not tell anyone. I have a terrible memory for secrets that amuse me. He smiled, and this time Sofia let herself look. Act 5, 7:15. Sunday came with pale sun, wet pavement, and one nervous mafia boss standing in Sofia Lane's apartment kitchen at 7:14. He had brought the coffee grounds. The correct ones. He had brought brown sugar cubes wrapped in paper, not a crystal jar or a silver box. He had brought 2 rolls from the bakery on Fulton, because the woman in the blue coat had apparently inspected him again and found his line manners improved. He had also brought the chipped cobalt espresso cup in a small wooden box lined with plain cloth. Sofia opened the door and looked at the box. That is dramatic. It is protective. It is a cup, Adrian. It is an elderly cup with enemies. She tried not to smile and failed. Come in. He entered without guards, though Sofia could see one black car parked far down the street where it would not frighten the neighbors. She decided not to complain. Compromise, like coffee, sometimes had to be taken in measured amounts. They worked at the narrow counter. Adrian measured the grounds by smell first, then spoon. He poured too fast once, cursed under his breath, and started again without Sofia telling him to. He placed the brown sugar cube on the saucer and waited. At 7:15, he lifted the chipped cobalt cup and took the first sip. He did not close his eyes this time. He looked at Sofia. Still terrible, he said. Correct. Still him. Yes. He set down the cup and, after a moment, added the sugar. Sofia watched his hand. It was steady, but not armored. There was a difference. What happens now? He asked. With the staff? With everything. You repair what can be repaired, she said. You apologize where an apology is owed. You stop letting people use elegance to hide cruelty. You learn to make your own coffee. That is a long sentence. You need long sentences. Short ones make you think everything is a command. He looked amused. And with you? The question arrived quietly. Sofia leaned against the counter. With me, you do not skip steps. Name them. First, you finish ending one life before inviting me into another. Done. Publicly? By tomorrow afternoon, yes. Second, you do not bring me into your house as a replacement for grief. Agreed. Third, you ask me to dinner somewhere that does not belong to you. Adrian absorbed that with the seriousness of a treaty. May I ask you to dinner somewhere that does not belong to me? Not yet. He waited. Sofia reached for the chipped cobalt cup, turned it slightly, and tapped the pale chip with one fingernail. You have one more thing to do first. What? Invite your staff to breakfast in the dining room. He blinked. All of them? All who want to come? Not as apology theater. As policy? He gave her a look. Sorry, she said. As a habit. Better. You sit where your father sat. They sit where guests usually sit. You serve the first pot badly, because humility needs witnesses. You enjoy this. A little. And you? I will come if Mrs. Alvarez comes. Not if I ask? Especially not if you ask like that. Adrian considered this, then nodded. Breakfast first. Dinner after. Maybe. Sofia. There was something in his voice that made her look up. He stepped closer, then stopped before closeness became pressure. I am not good at wanting without taking, he said. That was not a line from a powerful man trying to sound wounded. It cost him something to say. Sofia felt the cost. Then practice, she said. With you? Near me, she corrected. Not on me. His eyes held hers. Near you, he said. The apartment seemed very quiet. The tailor downstairs had stopped shouting. The city had not yet decided whether to wake fully. On the counter between them, the blue cup held the last dark inch of Carlo Voss's impossible coffee. Adrian looked at Sofia's mouth. Then back at her eyes. May I kiss you? The question was simple, and because it was simple, it did not feel small. Sofia thought of Bianca's hand cutting through the air as she fired her. She thought of the parlor full of guests waiting for a servant to become a scandal. She thought of Carlo's empty chair, the blue cup, the sugar cube held back until bitterness had been tasted honestly. She thought of Adrian standing on her stoop at 9:12, alone enough to be respectful, guarded enough to be real. Yes, she said. He kissed her carefully. Not cautiously. Carefully. There was a difference, and Sofia knew it in the way his hand hovered near her waist until she moved closer by choice. He tasted faintly of bitter coffee and sugar added late. His mouth was warm, his breath uneven, and for the first time since she had met him, Adrian Voss seemed less interested in controlling a room than in being allowed to remain inside one. When the kiss ended, he did not make a promise too large for the morning. He rested his forehead near hers, not touching until she leaned the final inch. Dinner somewhere that does not belong to me, he said. After breakfast with the staff. After breakfast. And after you learn not to overfill the pot. Cruel. Accurate. He laughed, and the sound folded into the small kitchen like something that might learn to belong there. 2 days later, the Voss dining room opened at 7:15. Not for investors. Not for engagement guests. Not for women in diamonds who wanted old men boxed into neat stories. For Mrs. Alvarez, who sat near the window with both knees supported by a cushion Sofia had placed there. For Tom, who arrived nervous and left with 3 rolls wrapped in a napkin. For Glenn, who cried once into his coffee and denied it so firmly that no one contradicted him. Adrian stood at the head of the table with the copper pot in his hand. The first pour was awful. Sofia, standing beside the sideboard, folded her arms. Again, she said. Every staff member looked at Adrian. The old version of him might have frozen the room with pride. This version picked up the cloth, wiped the saucer, and poured again. Better. Not perfect. Enough. He served Mrs. Alvarez first. No speeches. No grand apology that turned other people's pain into his performance. He simply served coffee, then placed a brown sugar cube beside each cup. After the first sip, he said. Mrs. Alvarez smiled down at her saucer. The chipped cobalt espresso cup sat at Adrian's place, empty until everyone else had been served. Only then did he fill it. Only then did he sit. Only then did he look at Sofia across the room and ask, in front of the staff who had learned to fear his silence, will you join us? Sofia came to the table. Not as staff. Not as scandal. Not as a replacement for grief. As Sofia Lane, who had remembered what a powerful house tried to forget, and who had made its most dangerous man learn that some truths entered through service doors because the front entrance had been guarded by lies. Adrian pulled out the chair beside him, then stepped back so she could decide whether to take it. She did. The breakfast was imperfect. Coffee spilled once. Tom laughed too loudly. Glenn corrected Adrian's placement of the sugar spoons and then looked horrified at himself. Mrs. Alvarez asked for more jam. Adrian burned the second pot and accepted Sofia's verdict without appeal. It was the most honest meal the Voss house had served in years. When it ended, Sofia carried the chipped cobalt cup to the sink. Adrian followed with 2 saucers. By hand, she reminded him. I remember. He washed the cup himself, slow and awkward, while she dried it with a soft cloth. Their shoulders touched once. Neither moved away. I ended it publicly yesterday, he said. The engagement? Yes. How public? Enough that nobody will invite you into a rumor and call it kindness. Sofia glanced at him. Thank you. You do not owe me that. I know, she said. That is why I can say it. He looked at the blue cup in her hands. Dinner? Where? A place on Mercer. I do not own it. I checked. Do they make decent coffee? No idea. Good. You can suffer. With you? Sofia placed the chipped cobalt espresso cup on the drying cloth between them. It no longer looked like evidence. It looked like a beginning that had survived being mishandled. With me, she said. Adrian smiled, and this time the house did not go silent because its boss had changed expression. It kept moving. Water ran. Staff talked in the dining room. Morning opened across the east windows. Somewhere in the room behind them, Mrs. Alvarez was telling Tom that Carlo Voss had once accused an orchid of arrogance, and Tom was laughing like he had permission. Sofia looked at the cup, at the pale chip that had started the whole impossible night, and then at the man beside her. You know, she said, your father was right. About what? Talking first would have ruined it. Adrian considered that. Then he reached for the sugar cube waiting beside his cup and dropped it in only after the first bitter sip. This time, sweetness came by choice. And this time, Sofia stayed to taste it. If you would have kept the chipped cobalt cup, tell me in the comments. Would you have served it, hidden it, or set it right in front of him?